Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to an event we're very excited about, Hassan Alcantar in conversation with Alex Neve. For those of you joining us from BC or Alberta, I certainly hope you are like me. You can see it looks like I'm in a cave. That's because it is super hot here. So I hope you are all also inside and hydrating, because it is, we poor British Columbians are not really used to weather like this. But we will try and make good use of your time. And I would like to start by introducing myself. My name is Lynn Duncan, and I am one of the publishers of Man at the Airport, How Social Media Saved My Life, One Syrian Story by Hassan Alcantar. Many of you will, I think, be familiar with Hassan's story. Those of you that are not will certainly have an opportunity to find out much more about it this afternoon. But the point of our discussion today is really to move beyond the details of Hassan's personal experience, which, while very compelling, was also unique to him. We are hoping to broaden this discussion now and talk more about human migration in general and what we can learn from Hassan's experience and how it affects all of us. So moderating our conversation today will be Alex Neve. We're very happy to welcome him. He, for those who do not know, he is the former Secretary General of Amnesty International Canada. And he has gone on to yet another career and is now teaching. He is an adjunct professor teaching human rights law at the University of Ottawa and Dalhousie University. So we are sponsored today by Book Warehouse. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to them. We have worked, Tidewater Press has worked with Book Warehouse before and found them to be unfailingly helpful and supportive of Canadian literature and especially local authors. So I certainly want to thank them. I want to encourage those of you who can to support them. And also, I just want to let you know that they are the sole custodian of signed copies of the book. So if you're looking for a signed copy of Man at the Airport, then you can order that through Book Warehouse. So just a little bit of housekeeping today. This is a relatively structured event, so we have kept everyone's microphone off just to avoid distraction. We do welcome your questions. We have allowed some time at the end of the discussion so that both Alex and Hassan can field questions from you. If you have a question, please put it in the chat and feel free to put it in as we go along, but we will probably be holding those questions until the end. So I think that's all the housekeeping on my end. And with that, I would like to formally welcome Alex and Hassan. And Alex, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Lynn, and welcome. Good afternoon. For me here in Ottawa, we're getting into the evening, and maybe there's even somebody online for whom this is morning. So I'll just say good day to everyone. As Lynn said, my name is Alex Neve, and I'm just so honored to have the opportunity to be the one who's going to guide us all through this fabulous and rich conversation with Hassan. I'm joining you from unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory here in Ottawa, and just want to acknowledge in particular what an honor it is to be having this conversation about human rights and about displacement and about injustice, but also about community and solidarity and the human spirit from this land. As Lynn reminded us, and I'm sure for everyone joining us, you very much do recall Hassan's epic story, and will certainly be familiar with his effort to escape the agonizing limbo of those many long months in the Kuala Lumpur airport, and his need to be able to reach a safe country. And the fact that that journey, that struggle captured worldwide social media attention in 2018. And we know that the end of the story is a happy one, as he has been living in Canada safely and freely, importantly, for the past 2.5 years. I only became involved at the very end when a number of us urgently mobilized to press the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship at the time, Ahmed Hassan, to expedite the processing of Hassan's refugee resettlement while he was in detention, awaiting possible deportation from Malaysia to Syria. Now, I guess I referred a moment ago to the end of the story, but it is clearly not that. This is no end. It is an unfolding story. And as you are going to hear in our conversation, and as I know you will feel and absorb when all of you buy and read this magnificent book, you're going to come to see that it's a personal story. It's very much a global story. But it's a human story, most importantly. A human story both in an individual sense and in the sense of humanity. And it's a story that continues. We're certainly fortunate that Hassan has put words to paper and written this compelling and important book, which captures his own story to date. But it also brings us face to face as well with larger realities of displacement, of the crisis seemingly unending in Syria, the injustice of borders and inequality in our world, the triumph of community action, the magnificence of the human spirit, and as you will come to see, the love of a good cup of coffee. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. We're going to start things off with Hassan, who's going to read a short passage from the book, a passage that I think resonates personally and powerfully with him. And then it'll be on to the conversation between he and I. And as Lynn indicated, I'm going to keep my eye on the clock and make sure that we reserve some time at the end for questions from you. So with all of that, Hassan, I'll turn it over to you to kick things off.
Thank you very much. I owe you a big thank you. What an honor to have you here. Thank you for accepting our invitation to discuss the book. And for those who joined us, thank you very much for being here. We are going to make this short and useful, I hope so, to bring something new and more awareness to the refugee crisis and to the book itself. I'm going to start with a small, very small reading. I don't want to renew the book or to spoiler alert, but I believe it's the last chapter of the book. The time I made the call after I knew that I'm going to arrive to Canada, and in my way to the plane, this is what happened. Finally, I made the call I'd been waiting to make for years. Listen, don't cry, were the first words I said to my mother. Otherwise, you will make me cry too. And I don't want to be weak in front of these guys. She cried anyway, as I knew she would. I did too, though I tried hard not to. My mother did not say much. I love you, I miss you, and passed the phone to Sulaf and Ammar. I could feel their joy. A genuine happiness my family had missed for too long. For the first time in years, my call to my family was bringing them smiles, not tears. And that was priceless, even if there wasn't much time to talk. Then I texted each of my Avengers. I got on a plane without looking back or saying goodbye to the guards. From the plane, I saw all the 6 of them lined up behind the glass, looking at me, and that was it. I don't remember what the flight attendant looked like, but I do remember asking her for a cup of coffee and to keep them coming. I looked up to the left side of the sky through the small window, and he was there, my father. I've spoken to everyone but you, I said. I am safe now. He smiled at me. I felt his words. It was hard and unique what you've done. Not the situations. All Syrians are going through the same, but the way you handle it. You remembered what I taught you. This is the difference in your story, not the story itself. One more thing. Don't forget who you become during your march toward your dream. It's more important than the dream itself. Don't forget your family or your people. Don't forget those you left behind. There is no end. For as long as you are alive, the end is nothing but the start of a new beginning. The end.
That's a beautiful passage to begin with, Hassan, and it actually I'm gonna reverse some of the questions I had in mind, because I very much did want to ask you about family, and you really have begun there, which I think is very telling. That's the passage you wanted to share, a passage that so powerfully does describe how central family is to you, and that is a theme that appears, every 2 or 3 pages throughout the book. Your fond recollections of your father, your close relationship, deep love with your mother, with your sister and brother. Family clearly is not only important to you, but has been central to what this journey has been all about for you. So I'm wondering if you could start maybe by saying a bit more about what family means to you, not just in the sense of, that we would all would say, I love my family, I come from my family means everything. But that aspect of what is your family to you in this journey you've been taking. And maybe also share a little bit about how are they today?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know how to answer an easy answer, so that's not how my mind works anyway. I think it's one of the main differences between the East and the West, the way we treat it and the way what families means to us. And I think because of the system and for you in the West, the freedom of the individual is the most important aspect. And the individual is the main unit of the society. And that's what the society are. It's a gathering of individuals. For us, family is the most important unit in the society and communities. For us, it's a part of our civilization, history, and tradition. A free man is not free until his family is free. He is not rich until his family is rich. He is not safe until his family is safe. Family, no matter how old you become, and even if you have a family of your own, they will be always your comfort zone and safety net. You cannot abandon them. That's the shameful and dishonoring for your manhood. So we grow up. It's a part of our DNA. It's a part of our tradition and heritage. And for me, because I I made them suffer for years. I was full of shame and disappointing them for years, and they never let me go. They never stopped supporting me. And I'm the elder son in the family. So to be the elder one means that you are the one who should take care of them. And knowing that they are living in a war zone, they have their own tragedy, they have their own misery, yet I was this additional weight in their shoulder. The fact that my family, my mother and sister, sold their necklace gold to send me the money for the Turkish airline ticket, which was supposed to take me to Ecuador, and I lost all the money because they did not allow me to board. That keeps haunting me day and night, that they did all what they can. I cannot forget about them. They identify me. They are the purpose of my life. And when I arrived to Canada, I knew that I achieved my dreams, or so I thought. But I knew that they are my dream now, to bring them to safety, to make them feel the joy and happiness. I still feel guilty because I cannot enjoy all this absolute, despite the heat today, all this absolute beauty before in Whistler and now in Vancouver or any part of Canada without them being here. So they means the world for me. I want them to see what I'm seeing. We are more than a family, a typical kind of traditional family. We have such a strong bond between us. And I can tell you hundreds of stories about that, but they never failed of supporting me. They never questioned me, and that's enough for me to. It's my time to give back now. How they are doing? They are hopeful that one day they are going to see what I'm seeing now. Now they have hope. Now I can see the smiles in their faces. Most importantly, now I can even financially support them, and that's such a huge weight just taking away from my shoulder. But so far I cannot bring them, and it's you know better than anyone how hard it is. It's almost impossible. But as long as there is tomorrow, we need to hope for the best and to keep trying. So it's not. It's families are the same in the Arabic world, especially in Syria. The most thing we should know that they are the first unit in the society, not the individual himself, but the family.
Right. Let me also in that opening passage, you repeated some beautiful words of wisdom and guidance from your father, which really struck me when I read the book. And in fact, it was one of the passages that I quickly wrote down in notes I was taking. And that is, don't forget about who you become during your march toward the dream. It is more important than the dream itself. And I'm wondering, as you sit in the heat in Vancouver, how would you describe your dream, and who have you become as you've marched toward that dream?
It depends. Life is all about priorities. And when you start missing the small or the big things in your life, they will become your priority because you don't have them anymore. That's why people take things for granted where they should not. When I was illegal and run, hiding, hunted in United Arab Emirates, and then after that in Malaysia or at the airport, my priorities were to be safe, permanently legal, to have a place I can call home, to have a stable job, to feel my value as an individual. And then something happened at the airport. Something changed me forever. And I now sit and think about it a lot, that nothing will surprise you anymore in life. Those who lived on the edge of life or danced with death for a certain period of their life, they will stand alive from a different perspective. They will be more calm, more cool. They will not panic easily. They know how to handle problems. They cannot see the small problems people are panicking from because they have been in a more serious situations. But before the airport, before I was illegal in United Arab Emirates, I was a man with a lot of ego and dignity. I thought myself as a smart guy who has a bright future, who know how to write or to speak in public, or where my opinion matter. And I had that self-esteem, and then I lost it because I was less than my friends. They achieved a lot in their life, and I was living on a car, on a street, on a garden, having nothing to eat. Then I start losing the confidence. When I was at the airport, I rediscovered myself. I found that man again. Then I become proud of what I'm doing, because it was no more the personal story. It was not Hassan the individual. It was Hassan, the Syrian refugee. So my story became my people's story, and I found proud of in this to be the voice, even if no one designated me to be the voice. I become the voice for the voiceless people. I become the face, and that gave me a reason to live for, and to fight for, to stand for. That's why that's how I understand life. So now in Canada, where I have some disappointing days, some low moment, I remind myself about priority. What's the worst that can happen now? That's what I ask myself, and I found that nothing, and nothing. And that's a lesson I learned from my father. It's the story of our olive farm, when he used to take me every weekend to our farm, and it was a hard job, the hut in the summer, and I did not like it much because it's physically exhausting. Then one day I wrote that in the book, when he said, and he said, don't sell the farm. It's what connected you to your roots. It's your connection to your village, to your people, to your cousins and family. It's what keep you as a part of this community. So I understood how we should be always connected to our roots. Now in Canada, being in Canada, it doesn't mean that I'm establishing a new roots. Because those who disconnect themselves from the past cannot live the present, and cannot dream about the future. It's a Hassan the Syrian is Hassan the Canadian, and we are it's a continuous journey, and that's why I'm bringing a part of my culture as Syrian to the Canadian community, and that's how I'm connected with my roots.
Mm. This book is a book of many stories. It's obviously very directly and very compellingly your personal story. This incredible story of your journey from Syria to UAE to Malaysia to Canada, and all of the misadventure and adventure and humanity that comes along. It's a very personal story in that respect. But you've also told a story that is big and global, a story that stares right in the face some of the biggest challenges and disturbing realities in our world today. Certainly the reality of displacement, realities of inequality, the harsh reality of the crisis in Syria, and your own personal story connects and reconnects with those bigger global stories. So I'm wondering, what is the book you wanted to write? What compelled you with all of those different stories? What compelled you to sit down and put all of these magnificent words to paper? I guess what is it you are hoping people will take from the book?
All what you mentioned, but that why it is a complicated story when you are going to separate all the elements and the factors, because it's a personal one and a global one. It's a humanitarian, it's a human spirit. It's telling us something about Syria even before the war, our culture, our families, our dreams, tradition, history, our mentality. But when I arrived to Canada, I always loved writing, and if it was me, I would study. When I was in Syria, I would study journalism. I always thought that I'm a good writer. I don't know, now it's for the audience and people the readers to judge. But I always felt that. Then when I arrived to Canada and I started introducing myself to the Canadian culture, to the Western people, and They know something about the Syrian war because of the media, and they know something about refugees, but they don't know anything about Syria before the war. And they rarely heard about Syrians directly. They always hear about us from a third party. And that's what I thought it's a story worth writing. I had messages to people, whether it's a personal one or a public one. Uh, uh, when I was at the airport, people start asking me questions about how are you able to make it? What is motivating you? What is hope for you? What is love? What is the Syrian refugee? So I wanted to answer all these questions people used to ask me, and because I received so many messages and still comments about people who I don't know what I would do if I was in your place. I don't think I will make it if I was in your place. And how did you make it? I even remember a call I received from a friend. He said, how you were able to make it, if even if you were an iron, you will be melted by now. And that's what I wanted to answer to. That if you don't have a choice in life, if that is the only choice you have to survive, then you will be able to make it. And to stop looking into others as hero, because there is a hero inside each and every one of us. That we need to understand that we always hear this in the movies and even in books, that giving up is not an option, but they never told us what is it. If it's not an option, it should be something. It cannot be nothing. But we always stuck with the first phrase or the first part of the sentence. From my experience, I think it's a result. It's a result for us not trying enough, not believing in what we are doing, or for us looking for an instant result. That's what I wanted to tell people, and also to tell that part of our daily life, we say, I hope so a lot. Thank you a lot. But do we really mean it? Do we know the real meaning of hope? Those who have been really hopeless, who touched their darkest and lowest moments in life, they could understand that this lowest moment, it could be their motive too. And I understand what hope means, because I know what the real hopeless mean. And so I wanted to explain it to people, to make them understand what life is all about. It's not also about always about what we want. That's a great thing, but it's also about what we have. So we should enjoy what we have sometimes, because what we have is the impossible dreams for millions around the globe. So let's start appreciate that. That's on a personal level. On a bigger photo, a bigger picture, it's a political one of a broken system and how it's not working. I learned this from my cellmates from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, who were at the cell with me in United Arab Emirates and Malaysia. They did nothing wrong except war at the wrong side of the world, and how this system is broke, and we need to do something. This year, it just came out the UNHCR refugee numbers for this year, and it's for the continuously the 9th years where we increasing in refugees, 82 millions displaced now, and it's not going away. So we need to do something. We need to reevaluate and start a dialogue about the 1951 Refugee Convention, because it's taking us nowhere. And that's what I want to tell people about Syrians, because the media has created this stereotype that whenever you say Syrian, a potential terror, or someone who's uneducated, unskilled, vulnerable people, dirty kids with no school, with no education, with no health care, when that's not the truth. They are skilled and educated people, and what they want is a slight chance, and they will turn it into liquid gold, but they just give them that chance. And how international law, governments, Syrian history, families. So I want to tell my story, and I'm still intrigued by the idea that we will always be far gone from this life in the future. We will be no longer there. But there's a part of us, our legacy, my book will be there at one of the libraries or bookstores shelves. and that's enough for me. That I tried to do something. I tried to put some words and ideas to change people's mind. It's out there, so let others do their part too.
I think that's a good challenge to everyone, and I think a challenge to everyone who has the great privilege of being able to read the book. So when you left Syria for the United Arab Emirates back in 2006, obviously you did not imagine that 15 years later you were going to be sweltering in 40-degree heat while you share this book with the public. And you assumed that you probably were going to be going back to Syria at some point in the not too distant future. I'm wondering, when did it become clear to you that you weren't going to be going home? When did the word refugee become part of that awareness? And what did that mean to you? What did that feel to you?
Thinking back now, sitting here in the heat in Canada, thinking back about my previous choices in life and how naive and maybe more than naive, maybe a stupid guy I was. I did not know at that time that because I had all the pleasures in life when I first traveled to UAE, my career was booming. I was having a work visa, but no one explained to me what's the difference between immigrant and illegal immigrant? What's the difference between citizenships and how your nationality is maybe will protect you or people will judge you because of it. I did not understand that time that what they have in United Arab Emirates or in the Gulf Peninsula is actually a modern slavery because I was having all the, now I know about it and now I feel mad and angry of the choices I took in my life because it's wrong and they should change. They should treat people in a better way with the human rights there. If you lived in UAE for 100 years, you will never gain their citizenship, and they will be done with you the minute your work visa or your contract is over. And that's from a humanitarian or a human rights point of view. That's a modern slavery. And how did I cope with that? That was wrong. And I learned after the Syrian war start, we were, and keep in mind that the Syrian revolution and the uprising start after Tunisia and Egypt, and they had very quick results. In Egypt, they changed the regime in 18 days, and 15 days before that, Tunisia changed the regime in a month. So in Syria, we thought naively that he's gonna be removed, and then when the military action start, when the shooting start, I knew that I'm never going back to Syria again. When they start the shooting, the killing, the bombing, the tanks were on the streets. When he sent the tanks on the street, I knew that Syria, the one I know, is gone forever. He's going to bring it all down and he's not going to go away. And that's when I knew that I'm never going back to Syria. And that's when the reality started hitting me that I'm paying now the ultimate price because of my choices. And but the word refugee, technically, I was all the time illegal immigrant in UAE because my work visa expired, so I become illegal. The word refugee came later when I was at the airport, when UNHCR showed themselves at the airport and conduct an interview. That's where I become technically a refugee, but not any minute before that.
And along the journey, there's many countries that play sometimes a central, sometimes less direct role. Obviously, there's Malaysia and the UAE, but there's also ways in which Turkey, Ecuador, even in a small way, Colombia, certainly Cambodia. I'm not going to spoil it for everyone who's going to read the book, but all of these countries feature in your story. And if there's a common theme, that's quite a diverse range of countries, but if there's a common theme, I'd suggest that it's this notion of countries closing their doors to you, or perhaps in some instances never opening those doors in the first place. And I'm struck throughout the book as you encounter those closed doors or doors that are being shut, you frequently observe that you would have almost certainly been treated differently if you were from, for instance, a Western country. And that really plays out, I think, as an important theme throughout. So what do you want people to understand from your story about borders and identity and equality in our world?
Now, with the pandemic, after 16 months of the pandemic, I think people must be understanding it in a better way. The pandemic was a tough test for our humanity and what we are made from, but it was also, it brought the whole world one step closer to understand the world from refugees' eyes, or to understand the refugee dilemma, because borders for 16 months were closed, and they were and still closed for refugees. And airports were forbidden areas. They were and still forbidden areas for refugees. All our passports now are equally useless, and we cannot use them. They were and still useless for refugees. So the world, because of the pandemic, start understanding refugees in a better way. But the common theme between all the countries, that when people are speaking about racism, they normally identify it as race, gender, color, religious. And I think with the Syrian crisis, there has been one I witnessed myself. It's a geographical racism, where people will start judging you because of where you're born, and there's nothing you can do with it. And unfortunately, with the West and the governments in the West, they take advantage of it because it benefits their own community, but at the cost of the poor people community who did nothing wrong. And that's where the small stories you witness in your life, you will start thinking about it, and it will be the major and main event which will shape your life. I still remember, and that's, I never thought about it before, but when I start thinking about geographical racism, there is only this incident in my mind where I was in jail in United Arab Emirates, 1 a.m. in the morning, and there was the gentleman from UK who was shouting, "I need my ambassador, I need get me out of here, call the British embassy, bring me a lawyer." He was shouting. They did not know what to do. They were afraid of him. Oh, with all their brutality and aggressiveness, they were afraid of him. And then by 3 a.m. in the morning, they opened the door for him. He walked away, and we stayed for another 14 days. And that's now I understand that this is a geographical racism. And this is what your nationality, when it backs you to feel safe and protected, supported by your nationality. And that's what's wrong with the world, because even not only the government, even a certain amount of individuals are taking advantage of it. And that's what we should change in life. With the small countries, like, it took me a month to convince to explain to the UAE authority what international mean, and that you cannot deport some. They never heard about it before. That you cannot deport someone to a conflict zone. It's the international law. What is international law? That's the ignorance we have in this world, and that's what we are fighting. We are not only fighting racism or hatred people or angry people or the supremacist people. We are also fighting ignorance in the first place. Individuals with the small power, with the small authority they have, because it makes them feel something good themselves, they decide to acting like God, and they will determine your life. The Turkish employee who denied my boarding, he's changed the course of my life forever. But for him, he just practicing his authority, and it makes him feel better. No, you are not allowed. He did not know what he did. He changed my life. At that time, all my life, I literally felt that it's falling apart again, and I could hear the breaking sound in my soul internally. Just an individual who's abusing authority because it feels him. And that's how much work we need to do in this war.
Well said. I have to ask you a question about social media, obviously, because it's so absolutely pivotal to your story. And I suppose in many respects, it's probably safe to say that, without those tweets, without those posts, you might not be sitting in this 40-degree sweltering heat right now. So it obviously played an incredibly important, vital role in what happened to you. And that, so with some time and distance, what is your relationship with social media now? What do you feel about the power, the potential of social media, but I guess also the dark side, the ugly side, and I know you experienced some of that throughout this as well.
It's a tool, and it's up to us how to use it. It could be a lifesaver, or it could be a weapon of a mass destruction. And some people who achieved nothing in their life, I think they will be seeking some virtual victory because it makes them feel better. So they will hide under fake names and photos and spread their negativity. But I don't think that social media or the cyber environment is a hostile environment because people are generally bad. I think because the majority of people, the good people, decided not to engage because they don't want to affect with this negativity. If we decide to engage, then all these hatred or they will crawl back to their caves. But we need to act. But it's amazing how we are living in the future and speaking the future language, and we don't need to write a sign anymore and go into the hot weather or the cold weather to protest. You can create the wave while you are having a drink in your living room, and it showed what individuals are capable of and the amount of pressure they are able to put on authorities and governments and to create the public opinion and to affect even electors and changing the course of the country and creating all this national debate like the one we are having now in Canada. And it's amazing. I don't have a strong relationship with social media. I write something just to keep connected with the people who help me and to speak my mind, but I don't spend much time on it. I don't read too much on it, and I'm not too much social media active. I think because I'm from the old generation where we're used to the old phones. When we used to go back home and ask our families if someone called us, this generation is too much connected, and they are doing some amazing work. And I think the elders are no longer going to lead this this war, the wisdom of the senior people. I think it's our teenagers, this 18 and 17, who are going to change. Look what they did a year ago or a year and a half when they damaged and canceled the rally for Trump at that time, TikTok teenager. And that's what we are facing now. We need to understand them. We need to speak their language so we can understand our children at least.
And just for the audience, I'm going to only ask maybe 2 or 3 more questions to Hassan, and then I will come to any questions you may have. I know we've had a couple come in already, but do feel free to share those in the chat function, and we'll come to those in a moment. You took quite a trip through humanity. You saw some ugly sides of humanity. You saw individuals, certainly officials in both the UAE and Malaysia, who were capable of injustice, of cruelty, of arbitrariness, of greed. You also, though, saw some of the very best of humanity: solidarity, community, compassion. I think of the wonderful group who you've come to call your Avengers, for instance. When you kind of think of all of those experiences, where does it leave you in terms of your belief in humanity?
Oh, before the airport, I lost all hope in humanity, and I was questioning everything in life, including my belief system. And the common question people normally ask themselves when they find themselves in such a situation: why me? What did I do wrong? This is too much, and we would start falling apart, and all that lack of confidence, lack of belief. But then you will, that's the thing about the media and the media storm I had. That's what the uniqueness about the Canada community. I have been in news and in languages all over the world, sometimes in languages I did not understand. Yet the only lawyer, the only volunteer teams who approach me and start seeking a formal, reasonable solution were Canadians. And that's when they, individuals who have a lot of choices in their life because of their nationality. They could travel the world, they could go ski and snowboard or go to the Caribbean. They could have a lot of fun in their life, and maybe that's the choice I would take if I was in their position. But yet they decided to approach life from a different perspective, to affect others, to change life, and that's when I start thinking. So for sure, they changed the way changed the way I look to humanity, but it made me kinder. And I used to be with more timber. I used to be maybe because of the situations or what life faced me with, but. Now I try always to assume good on people, to trust them unless they prove otherwise. And that's something I took from the Canadian. And maybe because of the nature, maybe because of the weather, it's cold here, so they take things slowly. But I'm now sitting here in the hot. I feel, how did I survive living 6 or 7 years in a desert on a car or public garden, where today is just another spring day there. That's not even the real summer. That's I like it because I feel how Canada changed me and the Canadian changed me. But humans, I think, well, that's the people are we spend through the first dawn with our mythologies, philosopher and thinker. We spend a lot of time and study books about trying to describe God and evil, heaven or hell, and all these movies or books or I think there is a God and devil in each of us as humans, and that's where we should look at ourselves. We are the real demonstrating, the real demo of it. We don't need to describe it. We can see it. We can see it in the eyes of those who are volunteering in the worst environments to help others, or in the eyes of the guy who just killed an entire family in London, Ontario. That's a devil and that's a God for me, and that's heaven and that's hell. We don't need to spend much time imagining it. That's the real deal, and that's we don't need to escape and run forward from the reality. That's the reality. There is a thin line cut into each human heart, goodness and bad. That's how I understand.
Okay, we have a few questions that are coming in, so why don't I switch to those for the last 10 minutes or so. And the first is, now I had asked you a question referencing the number of countries that had closed their doors to you. But one of the people on the call today is pointing out that there's also references in the book to the fact that there are a number of countries not only that are closing their doors, but are actually actively pushing back refugees from Turkey, from Greece, from Hungary, from Croatia, from a number of other countries. So I guess maybe that gives you an opportunity to, I think you referenced this a little bit earlier about the state of refugee protection in our world, how broken it is. But as someone who's both been through it and certainly someone who's observing and reflecting on that, what do you feel about the state of refugee protection in our world?
It's not working. When you're thinking it's dysfunction, and I think when we speak, I know how much I have a wish that people will be as inspired and passionate about refugee and the human rights the same way they are to the climate change. And I feel jealous from all the environment activists, because they have all this huge excitements around them, but not around the refugee crisis. And it's amazing. I know how both are important, and but I wish that one day we will be at that stage. But when people understand that we have something called, for example, the 1951 Refugee Convention, or its Protocol 1967 Protocol, and how we have 195 countries in this world who are signatory, but some of them are decided to just simply ignore this dishonor their signature, and not the small countries, the poor countries. I'm speaking about the world's VIB countries like Australia, for example. They are a signatory since 1954, yet they decided to sacrifice human lives and to lock people in Manus and Nauru Island for the last 8 years now. And for them, they are not humans. They are just objectives. This is what's going to happen to you if you decided to come through the sea illegally. They know very well the difference between being illegal immigrant or asylum seeker, but they decided to ignore it. So fortunately, I think we are not trying to win this war against ignorance or to end the refugee crisis. I think what we are trying to do is to stop the collapsing to go farther down, to stop us from getting worse. That's to keep it at this level for now, because in Turkey, they are just a political tool in the hands of the government. Whenever he's trying to blackmail Europe, he will open the borders. He doesn't care about refugees, and that's the reality. And when we are left alone as people, we are not humans for them. We are objectives. We are disposable assets to serve their political and economical agenda. It's about win and lose, but it's never about the people who are paying the price because of it. I wish I can understand politicians and the way they think, or governments and their priority, but I don't, and I still struggle with it. Like even in Canada, when the pandemic started, and with the third country agreement, which was a shameful agreement. And it should not come from a country like Canada, because we are trying to market ourselves in the world stage that we are a human rights country where people deserve a second chance. And then the Supreme Court stopped it. And that's the thing. For me, it's meaningless to save lives and to lose our humanity, but they don't. I don't know how they calculate their win and lose, but I'm still struggling with it, and I cannot find the right answer for it. And I feel most of the time when refugees ask me that to tell them that you are in your own. You need to find, you need to create a solution. You need to do what you need to do to survive and to save your family. But to save 82 million displaced, I don't think there will be, and they are on their own. And that's coming back to me, because now I know that I'm one of the luckiest.
We have another question asking for your sense as to how integration has gone for Syrian refugees over these last 5 years. Obviously, there have been thousands of Syrians who have now been resettled to Canada, including you. What are your thoughts about how integration is going?
That's a great and controversial question. I wish I have a simple answer or a answer which will give a sense of comfort for all that we are all doing great and life is, we are living the dream. Unfortunately, it depends on your education, your culture, and your English skills. And I think for if you are bringing families, the whole families with some senior parents, they will never be able to integrate. And but their condolences will be that they will start looking into Canada from the eyes of their own kids. They will be the successful one. They will be the one who integrated in the Canadian culture. They will be their tongue and mind to speak with the Canadian. But for some of us, it's never going to be easy, and it will. They will start feeling the nostalgia. That's why we have a lot of Syrians who are trying to gather into to again go and live within the Syrian communities there because it's their comfort zone and their tradition. For me, it was not a problem because I long before I came to Canada or even think about it, since the time I was in Syria, I was somehow connected to the Western culture. My first connection to Canada, even I did not know at that time, but I was Celine Dion. When I was in first year in high school, I used to listen to Celine Dion all the time. I read about it. So I know something about the Western culture. I know that I have the adjusting and adaptable skills. I know what to do. I speak some language, so it will be easier for me. But for some of the Syrians, it's never going to be easy. And they will always feel the loss and the pain. And that's the Canadian, that's the time or the job where the Canadian people should jump in to introduce themselves to the Syrian, to help them integrated, to communicate with them, to find a middle ground to a middle ground where they can both agree on or enjoy. But unfortunately, for the time being, Syrians are just trying to locate in the big cities, in their own communities, and they are living together now, and we are disconnecting ourselves from the Canadian community.
And then our last question from the audience is an important and a forward-looking question, and that is, what do you think that each of us can do on a more proactive and structural basis? And I like this part of the question. How can we unite and make a fist? This person notes that they themselves actually volunteered in Greece for a while and had taken in a Syrian boy from your hometown, Sueda, for 6 months. But they feel that's reactive. They're looking for proactive, unite and make that fist kind of suggestions.
I think, well, this, you may not like the question, and but I don't play nice when it comes to the truth. I speak my mind, and that sometimes it gets me into problems. And I have been always accused of being a problems maker, and I always say I'm not. I'm a problems magnet. But I think we are divided. The advocates of human rights, those who have the passion and the sympathy, empathy towards human rights, we thought that it's too big. The title, the subject of human rights. So we start dividing it into small pieces, and we start advocate to that particular piece, like the refugee crisis, indigenous people, LGBT, Black Lives Matter, all other minorities, women rights. So we start dividing, and we start sometime in a contradict with each other, where we should go back to the simple origin of it, which is human rights. If we believe in human rights, that it doesn't matter for me your sexual orientation, your origin, your color. And so I think what we should keep fighting for, not the refugee crisis, not the, is the human rights and equality in the human rights. And that's where we should start looking into something different, because we have our organization who are just specialists on sponsoring a certain type of refugees, which is, for me, it doesn't make any sense. And it's wrong itself. You are doing a good job, but you are doing it in a very wrong way. And that's what makes me, it got under my skin sometimes, that if we are all humans, we should all have the same equal chances or opportunities. So to be, and I think we should go to the symbol origin. symbol by start advocating for human rights in general, including refugees. What we should do for refugees, start putting a pressure, some pressure to keep. I think with the pandemic, the globalism took a very big hit, and we start always now hearing about nationalism and how we should be within our countries, seeking individuals' solutions and to secure our chain of products, and that's what we are looking for. When the solution should be a collectible, something we are not safe unless we are all safe. To keep the word out on social, even on social media or documentaries or about the refugee camps and the situation there. And that's all what I can advise them to do. Don't think only about refugees, think about human rights in general, because that's when we solve this one, all the others will be solved automatically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where it all goes wrong, and that's where it can all go right, isn't it? When you really commit to that human rights framework. I'm going to ask the last question, and this may seem trivial, but it's like we just set it up because I'm going to ask you about coffee. It looked like you just, and it may seem like a flippant question, but I don't think it is, because I think anyone who reads the book will know that there's kind of a soul-to-soul relationship for you and coffee, and it plays a very special sustaining force throughout your journey. So the last word is to coffee.
Well, I just the last week I heard something from my doctor, and she said you should start monitoring your caffeine because you have some high blood pressure. And I said that will never go to happen. So find another solution. It's not the coffee itself; it's what it represents. There was a time where coffee made me feel a normal person and who can enjoy just a cup of coffee in the morning. It reminds me of the days I used to wake up in the morning, early in the morning, and have a cup of coffee with my mother, a little chat, then I will go to my work or university. It's always the smell of coffee which remind me of the Eid celebration days in Syria, where the whole neighborhood is full with the coffee smell. It's the first thing I was thinking about it in Malaysia and at the airport, because it's a hint of freedom. It's one of the smallest things you take for granted, and you start because it will make you feel normal and you a human being. And that's what coffee means to me. It's somehow related to family, related to the person. And I think it identifies me, it describes me, because I always have it black with no sugar or cream, which a simple, clear, and sharp. I think that's me. And yeah, and so it makes me feel normal. Makes me feel that I belong to this world, and I'm like the rest of human beings.
There you go. I knew there would be something rich and meaningful about
Thank
coffee. Thank you so much, Hassan. Certainly from me, but from everyone for this rich and engaging conversation. I feel like we could go on for another hour. There's so much still to cover, but so thoughtful, so caring, and so challenging as well. And we need all of that. And thank you for the courage and the generosity of writing this book. I've read it twice now. I read it when I first got it, but I also reread it to prepare today, and it was as beautiful and compelling both times. And I certainly recommend to everyone here who hasn't yet had a chance to get the book and read it to do so, and to send the book to 10 of your closest friends. Because both as a compelling, page-turning, riveting personal story, but also as a meditation on the state of our world, it's a very important book. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
And I'll jump in here again on behalf of Tidewater Press. I would like to thank both of you, especially you, Alex, for taking the time and making the commitment to lead such an insightful discussion today. I think that it might have been clear and sharp, but it wasn't simple. So I think there are some there are some more profound messages there that I think resonate with all of us. I would like to thank all the people on this call for taking time out of their Sunday to join us. The book is available everywhere, but I certainly want to encourage you to support Book Warehouse because they have supported us as well, and you can get a signed copy through them. So with that, I hope everyone is staying reasonably cool and as hydrated as possible. And I thank you for spending your Sunday with us. And I will end the call at this point. Thank you again.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.